This wheel survived a crash from a mega ramp. I survived it too. I don't know what's more impressive. This very veteran Lynx also survived Mike Leahy. Sorry, that was the Kickstand S22. Roll the right clip. This very veteran Lynx also survived Mike Leahy. Doing ginormous jumps. I've ridden this wheel through the harsh Polish winter filled with ice, snow, and salty surfaces. Salty surfaces on the asphalt, that is. And it also survived that throughout the whole 8 months when I was testing this wheel in 4,000 kilometers of pain, agony, off-road and stunts that it has endured. I can safely and certainly say that this is the most durable performance suspension electric unicycle that has ever been made on this planet. So let me tell you more about it. So this review has been a really long time coming, and in this video I'll tell you all about the veteran Lynx, what went wrong with it, and what kind of experience I had both with dealing with this particular wheel and also, exchanging some parts. Because inevitably, if you do such crazy things on an electric unicycle, something is bound to go wrong. With that said, this wheel was provided to me by Veteran themselves, Leaperkim, the company. They sent it to me for free and I can keep it, I can test it as long as I want, and I can provide the content independently. So although I didn't purchase this wheel with my own money, I will tell you the whole story about the Veteran Lynx. I will not leave anything out. I'll tell you about one broken shock that I have, well, partially broken. I'll tell you about the motherboard cover that broke at some point. I'll tell you about my experience with the bit of a chassis flex that it has. So nothing will be left spare. I'll give you a whole picture of the Veteran Lynx. And if you want to get into the EUC world of fun, frenzy, and foolery, or if you just want to upgrade your current wheel, then feel free to use OneRide. This is the European distributor I'm working with in terms of EUCs, and you can use my coupon code WRONGWAY to get an additional 5% off. I do not receive kickbacks from those orders, but I work closely with them. I have a partnership. I'm sort of a, like a brand ambassador, I would say, maybe, something like that. I support their work, and they have just great prices, great service, and you can use this shop. You can also buy a EUC right away with custom pads fitted, which is pretty cool because, some of the stock accessories that come with this wheel might not suit your riding style. So you can get some NyloNove pads right away or some NyloNove footplates right away on the wheel. Right, let's get into the review. So let's start with the basics, and those you can actually also read on the OneRide site, but I'll tell you a little bit what those values mean along the way. So when it comes to the top speed of this wheel, it's around 85 kilometers an hour, as they say here on the site, which is pretty accurate. This wheel is super fast. It has a free spin speed of around 130 kilometers an hour. I never go so fast. What it just means is that it has a ton of headroom. I typically go up to 50 kilometers an hour tops if I'm on a super empty road, and if I go around the city, I just go between 20, 35, sometimes 40. You have just a lot of headroom, which is nice. I wouldn't suggest you going so fast on a wheel ever because your braking distance gets much bigger, but if you're interested into EUC racing, well, this is a value that is pretty important for you. Lots of people in Spain using this wheel for races. Speed is definitely in on this wheel. When it comes to the motor power, 3,200 watts. This is a number. What it means in reality is that you can climb any hill really with this wheel. Not only does it have tremendous power and torque, it also has plenty of grip, which I found to be really useful going up steep inclines off-road. I can climb 45 degrees with this wheel pretty much first try recently. I did that here in Warsaw, and going off-road, yeah, you'll have no issues at all with torque. It also brakes really well. I don't have any stats on braking. I didn't do any brake tests with this wheel, but it doesn't really feel like it's ever bound to give up on you. It has plenty of torque accelerating and braking. However, there is a small asterisk to it. I'll get into it later when I'll talk about the software on this wheel. The estimated range on the site is 160 kilometers. Maybe you can do it when you will be riding about maybe 15, 20 kilometers an hour and weighing in about 80 kilograms. For me, the typical range is around 100 kilometers. In the winter, I did 95 or 97 kilometers GPS of, usual real world range. Now in the summer, it's getting much better. I think now it's between 100, 110 maybe. Recently, we did a big group ride here in Warsaw. I went for about 93 kilometers here on the odometer. Probably was more about 85 maybe GPS, or 87. And I still had 3 bars of battery left, meaning I could go probably 100, 110 kilometers GPS. So this is the real world range if you're riding casually between 30, 35 kilometers an hour and a bit of off-roading. If you pedal to the metal all the time, probably you can drain it in 50 to 80 kilometers. It really depends on the riding style, on the weight, on the surface you're riding on, but for me, usually around Warsaw with my riding style, it's about 100 kilometers. I weigh 80 kilograms. When it comes to the battery capacity, it's 2,700 watt hours. But what is important here is that this is the lightest you see with such performance, suspension, and battery capacity. All of the competitors currently that I have been testing, the Bumoers Extreme, the InMotion V14 have a similar weight, but have about 200 or 300 watt hours less. So the weight to battery capacity ratio is pretty high on this one. The charging time of this wheel with the stock charger is about 3 hours. I'll get more into the stock charger of this wheel later. The maximum weight of a rider that can ride this wheel is up to 120 kilograms. When it comes to the dimensions of this wheel, it's a pretty big wheel. It's as big pretty much as the old Sherman S, even a bit taller, a bit narrower in the sort of chassis, so a bit shorter, but you don't really feel it. It's a big beefy wheel. You really feel that you have a lot between your legs if you didn't already. So I'll tell you about my experience and my opinion on the parts and features used on this wheel, also from the inside. Starting with the tire. The tire is a CST tire now. Before, Veteran was using Kenda tires. This is still plenty good. I like how it sits in the rim. I'll tell about the rim in a second. The grip is pretty great actually, especially off-road. The knobs are gripping well. And in tandem with the software that this wheel is using for propelling you forwards, you have actually plenty of grip on it. The thing that I don't like as much with this tire, and this is just the general tendency of if you have like a sort of ridge in between the knobs, is that you turn and then suddenly it sort of tilts a bit more to the side than you are preparing to. Now you can get used to it and people ride it, I ride it. I would probably prefer a bit of a different tread pattern that doesn't sort of have these, steps, but nevertheless, the seating was great. This is a tire that will last a long time too. I've put 4,000 kilometers on it and I don't see any reason of changing it. Probably about 10, 15,000 even kilometers you can put on such a tire. Maybe 7 if you're really a performance rider, but yeah, no complaints with the tire here. It's a pretty good one, not gonna lie. When it comes to the rim, it's actually a very durable one. I don't have any dents in it. And the great part about it is that Veteran really went and looked at motorcycle tires and saw that they have beads. So it is not like a flat sort of thin rim. It has beads on the inside so the tire can sit well. This is really awesome and it makes a hell of a difference. For example, my ET Max doesn't have this feature and I tried to put a bigger off-road tire on it and it just wouldn't sit well. And such a occurrence wouldn't happen on the Lynx because it has those beads. It is pretty durable, it is a wide rim, so yeah, also no complaints here, really good job on the rim here, Veteran. Moving up here is the motor cover, and I'll go a bit on the inside of the wheel here before we get into the bumpers and the pedals. So Veteran has a very good bearing system or a bearing sealing system on this wheel. Usually I would have problems with bearings at about 1,000 to 3,500 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers. That's what was usually happening even in prior Veteran wheels, but in this one, no, not at all. I was riding through sand, through water, through rain, snow, salty, salt-covered sidewalks and bike paths, and I have no issues with bearings. So a great job on the bearings and the bearing seal. Maybe in the future we'll see how long I'll have the wheel. Maybe something will happen, but for now, awesome. No squeaks, no grinds. great job. And sort of in this general area, you can't see it from here, but from the inside you have the motor mounts. Now, the stock motor mounts, some people had issues with them, like Mike Leahy should be time, but he was jumping the wheel a lot, and there's some sort of thing happened with those motor mounts and they didn't hold up and they started breaking, and then the wheel started vibrating. Now with my wheel, I had no issues actually with the motor mounts, and they are very cleverly designed. You have sort of the, let's take the kettlebell here. Let's see, this is the, the suspension piston, right? So at the end of the suspension piston, it goes into sort of a clamp where on one side you have the thing clamping down, and then you have another clamp that goes into the motor mount. And the cool thing about the motor mount, or where the sort of screws get through the wheel, is that there is not only very beefy screws that hold it in place, there's also a piece of metal that sticks out, and the motor mount goes sort of into it. So it mitigates also a lot of the lateral forces that are dealing pressure onto the motor when you're riding around, when you're using the suspension, jumping, etc., etc. So for example, again, on my Bigot Extreme, it's just screws without any sort of thread that goes inside. Okay, I look in the eyes. Okay, no. It is just the motor mount, okay? Get your thoughts straight. And there I would get some loose screws after 1,000, maybe 2,000 kilometers. And there also the motor mount broke, well, the slider mechanism. I'll replace it. They made a new one. Okay, different story. But on this one, the motor mount is great and very durable. I did change it in the end for a motor mount from AliExpress that is CNC machined, just to be sort of on the safe side when it comes to the durability of this part. But I really didn't need to. So great job on the motor mount here. A thing that, doesn't get talked about a lot, maybe in other reviews, but yeah, awesome motor mount. Like, come on, Leaperkin, good job. Yeah, maybe it could be a bit more durable because, CNC is still more durable, the one that I bought aftermarket, but yeah, no issues with it during the time when I was using it. Another great thing which I forgot to mention initially in the review is that the Veteran Lynx also has a Hall sensorless riding mode. So for example, InMotion V13 has twice the Hall sensors, but in this case, if the Hall sensor wire, which is sort of going along with the motor phase wires, breaks or for some reason gets damaged, this wheel will not just turn off and lose balance. So this is a great safety feature, and it's awesome that Veteran thinks about the rider, that if something goes wrong with the, a very small wire that can break, maybe, then you won't fall from the wheel and you can come to a standstill. All right, but getting back to the chassis of the wheel, you can see that it looks very different from the original Veteran Lynx. Starting from the bottom, I have some NyloNove bumpers, and they're both in the front and in the back, and they're really awesome. However, they have some drawbacks compared to the stock bumpers that were on the Lynx. So from the front, really no complaints here. They also can have some lights in there, and they also expand sort of your surface area for your pads. They also really look awesome. There's also a green part on the bottom, which helps with additional security. Again, not that much needed. It's much safer in terms of the wires going through here than the, Sherman S. So even the stock setting is fine. Like, it's not that you need those NyloNove bumpers, but they make you look a lot cooler and they let you have more surface area for the pads. The big difference here is in the back, because in the back there was usually a kickstand for the Veteran Lynx, and I totally detest it. I hate it. It's so long, and I did hit my shin against this rear huge monstrosity of a kickstand many times. So it was not only a complaint from my limbs that, the kickstand is just so annoying. It was also annoying when going to skate parks, doing drops, doing heavy off-roading. They did improve the kickstand now in the Sherman L. It's a lot higher up, and I think it won't get in the way so much. But on the Veteran Lynx, I just removed it. And the downside of it is that it does remove quite a bit of the structural integrity of the wheel, because it's, it's made out of plastic, it connects the wheel on the bottom. There isn't really any other thing that connects the wheel here on the bottom to make the chassis just a bit more rigid. I still prefer this setup because this allows me to do more on the wheel. This also extends the surface area for the pads along with the different bumper here on the top. So yeah, in terms of the front stock bumpers, no issues. Bottom, no issues. Kickstand in the back, I hated it. Maybe they can make a revision to it and make it more like the one that you have on the Veteran Sherman L. Okay, so before we get any higher on the wheel, we're going still bottom to top. Let's talk about the footplates. And I didn't like the stock footplates all that much, mainly because the studs weren't so grippy. So whilst just for like casual riding in a city, and especially if you don't have rain or if your feet won't get wet, they're like fine, but definitely not my favorites when you buy a wheel that costs, you know, 3,900 euro. It's a lot of money. Yeah, the studs there weren't my favorite. They are not height adjustable, which is a limitation. They are not angle adjustable, which is another limitation. The Veteran Lynx also has a very high center of weight, especially if you compare it here to the ET Max, Bigo ET Max. You can see that they put the battery here lower down to mitigate, you know, all of the weight that here's on the top. And on the Veteran Lynx, we have pretty much nothing there. And we can't also lower the pedals, which we, for example, can do on the ET Max. They can go all the way down here. Really neat feature. So this wheel is definitely not a beginner wheel. It won't be easy to ride on it as your first wheel, and it's definitely not as comfortable and predictable in turns and maneuvering around like the ET Max is. Like every time I ride this wheel, this is so comfortable, such a great cruiser. I think this might be even easier to learn on than the Veteran Lynx. So even though it's great to have those high pedals for off-roading, it makes the ride a bit tougher to predict and takes a bit more getting used to. You can also buy lowering kits for the Veteran Lynx. I didn't try any of those out yet, but maybe those could help you out a little. So in the end, I had to change them for the NyloNove STAS Veteran Lynx pedals. So with those, I have 20mm studs. Those are sort of mountain bike pins. They're great, they're grippy, they're also angle adjustable. So if you really want to do some serious riding on your Veteran Lynx, you need to change the pedals for aftermarket ones, which will cost you another, you know, 200, 300 euro, which is, you know, annoying if you're already paying so much for a wheel. So I hope with the future wheels, we'll get something at least as good as we get on Bigo. And on Bigo, you have studded foot plates, much better than the stock ones on the Veteran Lynx. Moving up the side, let's talk about the side pad situation and sort of fairing here. So initially, for most of the time, I was riding this wheel with my NyloNove kinetic pads, and they were plenty fine for this wheel, and they're great for casual riding, but I needed just a bit more, you know, sturdy pedals, a bit more beefy ones for jumps. And I started to use Fusion power knobs on the Veteran Lynx. Oh, by the way, if you want to get any discount on the NyloNove and kinetics, the code there is wrongway for 5% off. If you want to get the power knobs, then the code is knobway. I love the humor of power knobs. Yeah, they're really funny. Anyway, with those power knobs, I have unlimited lift on this wheel. I can jump really high just from standstill. The brake pads are great. I have the brake pad sort of extender, which makes the brake pad bigger. And then on top of that, I have the NyloNove kinetic acceleration pad. So I can ride it also without this pad, and then it's easier to ride seated and to do jumps where your knees bend really a lot. But for off-road riding and doing a lot of inclines, I still need the acceleration pad. So because there isn't really any big pad at power knobs, I put the NyloNove kinetic power pad here on top. So this is the setup here. I love it. Plenty of grip, plenty of jumping abilities, really stays in place. And additionally, with this rear handle and front handle, I have a lot more room to put my brake pad further back because the room itself on the sort of stock Veteran Lynx is quite limited. So you can't put the pads far back. And I think that you see manufacturers need to account for legs because your leg is here when you stand on your electric unicycle and you still need room for the pad. And usually with those new narrow electric unicycles, you just don't have any room to put them on. So there needs to be just more area here in the back where you can just at least place your brake pad. So you see manufacturers and Leaperkim, Veteran here in particular, just think about the legs, all right? Just think about it. Try to accommodate the leg into your EUC design. Just don't make it just symmetrical. The leg is here, so you need room in the back. Okay, you got it. You noted it down? Okay, thanks. Now, originally on the Veteran Lynx, and yeah, I recorded this a bit later, there are the toe hooks here instead of the power knobs. And while it is a cool idea when it comes to like adjusting them for different sort of sizes of shoes, I'm not the biggest fan of toe hooks in general. I think that they're a bit too stiff and too hard, and they can like leave you stuck in a wheel while you want to get out of the wheel, maybe breaking a leg in the process or breaking your ankle. And additionally, you can't also like change the sort of placement of it forwards and back. You can change them up and down, but not really forwards and back. So I really don't like the sort of safety aspect of them. And that's also partially why I removed them and placed usual toe pads here on the bottom. Now, before we get into the suspension, which is, you know, still higher up, going still going from bottom to top, we'll talk about the Mudguard. And the Mudguard is very generous, I would say. And with those NyloNove bumpers, there's really not much water splashing onto your feet. Without the bumpers, it was a bit worse, but still very doable. And in the back, it's also quite long, even for rainy rides. This set of Mudguards is, you know, pretty much good enough for all kinds of riding. Now, for off-road riding, things might get stuck here in this Mudguard at times, like a stick or a small piece of dirt or a stone might just like shoot through. So maybe it would be better to have a bit more distance here between the tire and the Mudguard, but even so, I don't have that many complaints about it, especially with the additional NyloNove fairing. Things might also get stuck here in between the tire and the chassis itself. Then it's a bit more annoying to take stuff out, especially if it goes like in the ridge where the suspension linkage is. So maybe it would be best to have something even between the suspension linkage, between the suspension piston, like a flat wall, so nothing would sort of go in between the suspension piston and the tire. So maybe that's some sort of improvement they can do in the future. With that said, yeah, good Mudguard. Not really many complaints here. Like initially I thought it would be a bit too short, but in the end, if you want to combine something for off-road and street riding, then this is it. If you want to just go in the city, yeah, the Mudguard should be down to here. So yeah, the more you know. Mudguard knowledge. All right, so now we're getting into the suspension, and suspension is the most important part, I guess, in a suspension UC. And Veterans stayed true to their Fast Ace design, and here we still have some spring coils by Fast Ace with oil inside, so you can regulate the compression, dampening, and you can also actually adjust the preload on those shocks. I was testing the 62-pound version of the shock and the 70-pound version, and both of them are great, really. And for most of the riders, even 62 could be enough. It was a bit more comfortable than this one. I felt like I was not riding constantly on the top of the shock, on the top of the travel. But you know, for the stuff I do need the most sort of heavy shock. And if you want to have some additional stiffness on the shock, you can use different oil inside. So if you want to have still a bit more of a stiffer shock experience, just use denser oil. With that said, we have 90 millimeters of travel, which is not a lot in the shock, but we have a shock that works really well for a long time. It stays smooth for a long time and doesn't require that much maintenance. Although once a year you should take it out and do some cleaning to it, or you know, after you feel like it's not as smooth anymore. I don't really know. Librakim did release some info that you have to do maintenance to the shock, and I guess some instructional video too, but I don't really know how often you need to do it. So I guess once a year is maybe a good ballpark. Now the shock is really awesome also because of its adjustability, and the ride changes drastically if you change compression or rebound. You can spin the screw head here on the top with a flathead screwdriver, and there's clicks so you know how far you're into the setting. So on the right side, you have compression. So if you crank it up all the way to the top, the wheel will just drop down slower and with more effort. And this part actually broke for me. The right shock and the compression adjustment doesn't work anymore, so I'll get a new one. I don't know why. And the left shock is for rebound. So this is how long the suspension takes to get back up to the sort of highest position. So, you know, I played around with it a lot, and typically I want to have pretty slow rebound to keep a lot of grip on the ground, and it gives me just a bit more stability in turns. But if you want to have it like a trampoline and super comfortable, like a sort of like a Cadillac, I guess, then you can just crank the rebound all the way fast, and then it will be the most comfortable ride. Now with the compression, I also like to keep it pretty stiff for the jumps that I do, but for more comfortable riding, you want to keep it at a soft setting. So soft compression, not hard compression. And there's a big difference to it. And if you set the compression to really hard and the rebound to quite slow, then this wheel becomes really uncomfortable. Like you can feel that the suspension doesn't work all that much. There's just like a lot of resistance, but you can set it up to whatever liking you want. So this is great. I just don't like the fact that you always need to have like a tool or a coin or whatever to turn those things around. I guess there's some 3D printed accessories at Trolley Market which you can use for having a knob here on the top, but should be here from factory. And then you use a 18mm wrench to screw this whole golden part in so you can have some preload. So if you want to have preload, if you're very heavy and you feel like you're really riding low down on a shock, then you want to have more preload so you have more clearance right away when you step on the wheel. So you don't want to have too much sag, and then you just get the preload all the way in. I have it all the way out because I don't feel like I need more preload on this wheel. It's already stiff enough, this suspension. With that said, and with all of this adjustability, there's some things I really do not like about the suspension. First of all, it doesn't have all that much travel. So if you want to have more travel when it compresses, then you're sort of riding on top of the wheel and it doesn't have so much travel going out again. So once you go over something, the tire doesn't stay on the ground, it just, disconnects from the ground. So you want to be somewhere sort of with a little bit of sag on the suspension, and you can really feel how this wheel is a lot more bouncy and has sort of a little bit less grip on like honky, ponky, tonky, cronky terrain. I'm sure that's a professional way to say that. And I could really feel the difference in suspension travel when going to a single track and going off-roading. So for example, on the Bumoers ET Max and on the Extreme, a lot of the bumps are just getting soaked up and it almost feels slower than the Lynx. But in fact, it isn't. It's just more comfortable and more, predictable, manageable. This wheel is bouncy, but the suspension works really smoothly and quickly. So this feels really fast, although I would really prefer it to have a lot more suspension travel. For example, on the single track, I had a time of around 22 minutes, under 22 minutes on the Lynx. And on the 10 kilograms heavier and not with a optimal pad setup, Bumoers ET Max, I had a time of under 23 minutes. So just a minute of a difference, and I was thinking that would be a world of a difference. So yeah, please, more travel, veteran. Now, of course, it does help a lot in jumps and it eats up all of the bumps pretty comfortably, but once there's something bigger on the road, I just feel like it could be so much better because you want to have travel both ways. You want to have travel to compress, but also to decompress, to always keep, the wheel connected to the ground. So if they could make a 120mm travel in the future or 130, that would be a game changer. Like you could even have the same amount of pedal height or maybe even slightly higher, but more suspension travel outwards. So we have just a more comfortable ride. I don't really like that there's not that much suspension travel on this wheel. And the next thing I don't like is that it has quite a bit of chassis flex, especially without the front bumpers, which did provide some additional rigidity, and also the kickstand. This wheel tends to just like move a little bit within the chassis. So the chassis stays straight, but the wheel can move a bit, and especially in turns. I can feel that it is not as precise as I would like it to be. I think also because of the way those shocks are designed, I have a little bit of a clicking sound on it. So I think, I'm not very sure, maybe you can, write in the comments whether that is the case. The suspension parts or maybe the motor mount is hitting against the shell. It could be even the motor cover itself hitting against the inner side of the shell, as you can see by those marks here. This is the furthest away part of the motor cover. Same on the other side. So yeah, this is the other side. You can also see it's not how it should be. There's just a small bit of a knocking sound, especially on small, quick, successive bumps, which is quite annoying. And in those turns, yeah, it's just not as precise as it could be. I don't know how to fix it. Maybe a different way to mount the shocks here on the side, maybe longer suspension pistons, maybe a different design altogether, but it is just not as precise as, for example, suspension on a Bumoer wheel. There I can feel that I know 100% where I will go and where I will end up. So with the new software, it is still getting better. Sometimes if you fall, you might have an experience that suddenly when you turn left, I have it for example, the tire rubs against the shell. And the only thing to do then is to sort of lay the wheel flat on the side, push it in one side, and then the problem goes away magically. So there's still some room for improvement, especially the suspension travel and this chassis flex. But still, with that said, this might be the most robust and long-term use-oriented suspension system out there on the market. And definitely with the adjustability, you have a lot of potential here, and it stays smooth because it has oil spring shocks that are also sealed. So no dust, no debris will be getting into the slider mechanism. Oh my God, that was a lot to say about suspension. Whew, I need to have a drink. All right, so now let's talk about the bumpers a bit. You can see that I have different ones installed now. I have the NyloNove bumpers. Again, they have a little bit less structural rigidity than the stock ones. The stock ones were fine. I mean, one of them broke on the fall in Vienna, but I mean, that's very little of a damage really when it comes to damage after a fall from 5 or 6 meters. So the bumpers are really robust. I did change them though because, well, those look cool and they're blue, but they are also a bit more comfortable against your knee. So with the stock ones, I didn't like that I'm hitting my knee sort of here on the top. Maybe some of you like it, some of you don't mind. I prefer it to have this, the NyloNove way. Yeah, so much about the bumpers really. The tail bumpers are also NyloNove now with the added pad sort of Velcro area here. It's not really related to pads, but I don't like how this thing, the suspension cover, has this sort of insert. It gets in the way a little bit. I think if it would be flat, it would be a lot more comfortable. Now let's talk about lighting a bit. I have a different light than the stock light here. This is the Mr. Meyert Cyclope Halo. And this is really awesome because it has a daytime running light and a main light with a cutoff beam and long beams and high beams. Now, the biggest reason for me to switch from the stock light was that it was just so damn bright that it was unusable on bike paths. It was literally insanely bright, and it was not a focus beam, it was getting all over the place. So unless you're pointing the light really far down and then sort of the tarmac is blinding you just from the sheer power of the light, it would just blind others a lot. So for off-road, yes, the stock light is great, but I wish they would just add a setting where you can just adjust the brightness. But if I could use the stock light at 10% brightness, it would be great, but you can't. And this is super annoying, which is why I would suggest to get any aftermarket light for this wheel, or just not use the stock light in the night, because it's really blinding, it's really painful. So very not pedestrian, cyclist, other users of the road friendly. So you can use the Cyclope Halo. It also has its quirks, it's not the best for off-roading because it's a pretty narrow beam and it has a cutoff angle, but still I prefer this than to just straight up blinding everyone on the road. In the back, I do like the lights a lot. I think that they're bright, especially the brake light. I don't like the blinking pattern. It's just the blinks are very long apart. And there's also the turn signals, which are in my eyes not needed. So maybe in the future, just a straight up usual light, just light up red and light up more red, brighter when you brake. But still, with that said, the brake lights, really not that much complaining here. All right, when we're talking about details, let's talk about the charge port, and they're using a 5-pin GX20-5 port. I would prefer just one stronger port, like a XT60 plug, whatever. But apparently EUC manufacturers just really like their different ports. Maybe they're cheaper, I don't know. But that's what we have here. I don't like the placement of it because it's very sort of far into the shell. And if you have the wheel on a kickstand, it's really not comfortable to put it in. But for me, when I have this kickstand and I just leave it sort of on its face, then it's just, pretty comfortable to put it in. It just depends on the position of the wheel. And one more thing I forgot to say about that. The lights are also very well protected by the bumpers. It's really cool. It's not like, you know, anything here would break because, yeah, the bumpers are in front of the, you know, both the ports and the lights, which is cool. But let's go back to the charge port and the charging brick. So the stock charger on this wheel is 5 amps at 151 volts. It's super quick when it comes to a stock charger, but also pretty loud and not the most sort of smart charger out there. I mean, it's a pretty dumb charger if you ask me. They were usually calibrated also a bit too high with their voltage going out of factory, but now it doesn't really matter because then you can adjust the voltage limit on the app. I'll get into the app later. You can use 2 of those and then you can plug in both like same chargers to the same wheel. And the maximum charge rate on this wheel, and it's I believe the same for the 50E and 50S version. I have the Samsung 50E version. It's 15 amps. So if you don't want to use this, then I have this vector charger. I was recently talking about the vector charger in my EUC accessories video. It's not that easily available, but it's 800 grams. It's very quiet and it's either 5 or 10 amps. So this is something that you can get instead, but it's a very limited production. It's tough to get them. Or you can get a PidZoom charger. This is their new 14 amp PidZoom charger, which is pretty small. I can't show you how it works because it broke for some reason. I'm working with PidZoom to figure things out. Yeah, I have another charger from PidZoom that works perfectly well. And then you can just use one of those to charge this wheel out quickly. This one is also super quiet. So currently charging the ET Max. It's so quiet. Excuse the charger pile, but it's amazingly quiet. It's quieter than my original charger for the ET Max. Amazing. Look at that, 5 amps. And this is actually a touchscreen, so you can like long press and then like put in all of your values. And yeah, 14 amps is plenty quick. This would be a lot better for this wheel. So I think this is really my favorite choice, although this one weighs 1.4 kilograms, but it's also more available than the vector charger. Also use code wrongway if you want to have a discount at PidZoom. And I guess the stupidest thing about this charger is the sort of the charge graph. And this wheel has I guess the charger really, not the wheel, has a weird thing where if you're getting to a full charge, it's like turning on and off. All the time. Now what should happen is when you reach the maximum voltage that is, you know, on the wheel, the amperage of this charger should go down and down and down, and then finally at some point it will turn off. But here it's like it charges, there's battery sag, so then there's too high of a voltage, the charger is like, okay, I'll stop charging, then the battery sag goes back down again, and then the charger is like, okay, I can charge again, and then it's stuck in this loop. This shouldn't happen. There should be just like bigger timeouts or bigger tolerances. It's not the biggest issue if you leave it and you know, the wheel is charging and it's not charging, but it's just not the best way to deal with batteries. You want to have a constant rate of charge. That would be better, probably with some adjustments to either the software on the wheel or on the dumb charger. Yeah, I shouldn't call you dumb. You're a good boy. You're a good boy. Please don't break on me. All right, so slowly we're making our way to the top, and on the back here we have the trolley handle, and the trolley handle broke on me. I don't know when, but I'll get a replacement. It just gets stuck on the top. Maybe you have this issue too. But other than that, it's at a good height, it's at a good spot, the wheel is pretty well balanced, and it's also a big girthy trolley handle to like hold on. And that means it's just like easier to push the wheel indoors or, you know, outdoors, whatever. It's a good trolley handle. I like it a lot. There was no stock seat for this wheel. Maybe depending on where you buy it, you might get one or you just buy one aftermarket. I got the seat from NyloNove, and then I can still use the trolley handle here in the back. Moves to the front, moves to the back. It's pretty comfortable, although a bit maybe too stiff for me, but I use it anyway. And if I do jumps, I just take it off because I want to have the most amount of travel for my legs in this case. So yeah, no stock seat, but this NyloNove seat is plenty good. And if you want to ride seated, well, it's a pretty good choice for that. Now when it comes to the top, we have the top cover, and I really like the fact that the motherboard has one cover here on top, which is plastic, and then another one beneath that. So it's 2 layers of plastic protecting the motherboard. And actually both of those layers broke when I had this big crash in Vienna on the Mega Ramp. So it's great that both of those layers are there, and this prevents the wheel from breaking really bad. There's also a screen here with 4 buttons. It's really awesome. It shows you the battery, the most important info, the speed, and it's very readable. You can set up the backlight. It's a great screen, and Veteran has been using it on all of their wheels since basically their beginning of manufacturing wheels. So that's really awesome. For some people, I guess the buttons were getting stuck. For me too, but they stopped getting stuck. So that's not a problem that stuck with me. So I guess that's it when it comes to just the plain features of the wheel. Now I'll show you the app, and later I'll tell you my sort of whole experience and my whole view of this wheel. All right, so here's the app to the Veteran Lynx, and it looks very basic. It looks like, I guess, Windows 8 on your phone. Pretty lame, not gonna lie. There's an alarm. You can turn the light on or off. You can reset the trip meter and shut down the wheel. Capacity is 100%. You'll get the speed, amp draw, the temperature of the motherboard. By the way, this one shows 29 degrees, and in the wheel it shows me minus 29. Real weird. And there you have also the speed and also the speed limit. So on the next side, there's more data, like for example the charge rate, the total distance, all of your data regarding to your overspeed alarm, over the speed tilt back, all of that stuff, the voltage, and in how many seconds it will turn off. 3,500. I guess that's around an hour. Yeah, that's just how it is. And then the current riding time, the total riding time. Wow, 200 hours on this wheel. Crazy. And then further, you have the smart BMS info. This is super important. I think every wheel should have a smart BMS, and there you can check your cell voltages, what's their delta between the highest voltage cell and the lowest voltage cell, the temperatures, and yeah, this is awesome. And also how many amps it's drawing, also during charging, which is great. The batteries are also sealed and safe, and the only thing missing here really is a motor temperature sensor. So really awesome, those 3 main screens. And then if you go into settings, you can have the device info, and then there is a picture of the wheel, maybe 3rd time around. Yeah, picture of the wheel, software version, and the vehicle name. You can choose your language, you can switch your units, and then finally we have vehicle control, which has almost all of the settings of this wheel. I mean almost, because some of them are only available through the screen, like for example acceleration assist, which is one of the most important features in the wheel. So here you can set up your ride mode, and this means just how much the pedals will dip or go up when you brake. I just have it at 100%, so this is the setting where they stay the most sort of flat. But even on 100% sensitivity, Bumoers wheels will be always more stiff, and they will dip the pedals less when accelerating or braking than the Veteran Lynx. Especially the Bumoers Extreme has a lot less pedal dipping during acceleration and turns. But with that said, the pedals, when acceleration assist is off, also stay up or down for a longer time when you accelerate or decelerate with the wheel, bringing a bit of a wobbly experience. So that's where acceleration assist kicks in. I'll talk about it a bit later. And right away, also a feature that is missing from Veteran, and this is a feature that is only on Bumoers wheels, is the, where is it here? Is the pedal turning angle adjustment. So what that does is that it allows you to choose whether the pedals dip down, or essentially the whole wheel dips down or tilts up when doing turns. And this is awesome, because then you can select whether the wheel will shift its balance to the front, will stay just flat in turns, or you will have the wheel tilting up. And this is so crucial during off-roading, so crucial during doing some stunts where you need the precise balance of the wheel. It will be always better to have a option to adjust that than not to have it and just deal with the pedal dipping in turns that this wheel has. This is real weird on the Lynx. The Lynx sort of gets up a little bit, and then in the long turn it goes down again. And I was calibrating it many times. I was even calibrating it to the front and then dipping it back to the back with the angle adjustment, but there is no way to remove pedal dipping from the Veteran Lynx. I hope they will make it available in a future update, just like Bumoers has this pedal turning angle adjustment. And again, it's not only for the pedals, it's for the whole balance shifting of the wheel, especially with such a top-heavy wheel where the pedals are high, like the Veteran Lynx. Yeah, this feels a lot more stable. It's weird, but yeah, this is a lot more stable, even at lower speeds. Crazy. Then you have your angle adjustment. I change it all the time actually. So for casual riding, I keep it at around 0 or 0.5 degrees. So the wheel is pretty flat. And then if I do off-roading, I change it to like 1.5. So it's tilting up a bit. If I do really hardcore stunts and like hardcore off-roading, I tilt the pedals up 2.5 degrees. So the wheel will tilt forwards when you accelerate, and I want to just like mitigate how low the pedals will go. So yeah, about 2.5 or 1.5 degrees tilting back when I do hardcore stuff. You can set up your tilt back speed. I have it off currently. Your PWM is when the wheel will beep when you sort of go too fast or use too much power. I'm not sure really, maybe it also tilts you back then. I never really go as far as to like draining or like using the power of the wheel all that much. I have an alarm speed setting and the backlight adjustment of the screen. You can calibrate the wheel so you don't have the pedals going up or down in different directions when you turn. You just want to have them, you know, if they dip in both directions the same way. And this is how the software on the Veteran Lynx behaves. Then you have transportation mode. If you put it into a box, you can correct your voltage. This is basically a setting where you check manually what's the voltage of the battery with, you know, your voltage meter, and then you correct it against the values that are shown on screen. You can use low battery mode to drain the battery cells a bit lower, and this is only for, you know, getting back home in an emergency. Usually I would have it off. Then there's high speed mode for going fast, even at the lower battery. This is essentially a setting that allows the motor and controller to use field weakening. In essence, is just, you know, faster. Then there is the lateral tilt angle adjustment. So if the wheel tilts to the side, it turns off. I have it at 69 just for the memes, really, for usual riding. But if you just ride really casually in a city, I would suggest setting it to 50 or 55. And if you ride berms, so you go to a skate park, maybe even at 75, especially at a pump track. But this setting is not that smart. I don't like how the wheels sometimes just fall out and they start spinning and doing weird shit. I think there should be a sensor that realizes that the wheel is crashing and then just prevents the wheel for doing further spins, because it's just like spinning and spinning and spinning and crashing. Really dumb. Then you can adjust the volume of the beeper. I have it at 8% because I never really run into beeps. And you can set up the maximum charge rate. This was not available before, especially if you live up a mountain. You want to push it a bit lower down, because the first thing you do when you go and you have a charged up wheel will be that you might just blow the board, or the pedals will go up because the wheel would be overcharging the battery. So yeah, finally the setting is here. I'm really happy to see it in the app. So the only setting that is not available in the app is this Tiora. But this is acceleration assist, and you can go from 0 to 100. And I believe this will be available in the app because before, all of the other settings here on the screen were also not available in the app, but now they are. But acceleration assist is an amazing feature, and what it does, it lets you sort of choose how the pedals behave upon acceleration. So if you set it to 0, the wheel will turn your lean directly into acceleration, but then the pedals will also stay in that position when you were accelerating. So then if you want to brake and you were accelerating before, then the wheel is in a weird spot. So then you can put on more acceleration assist. So at 50%, the wheel has a little bit of wiggle room, and it allows to shift the weight a little to make acceleration and braking easier. But then if you set it to 100 at acceleration assist, it becomes absolutely amazing and totally changes the ride of the wheel, because it has a lot of wiggle room. The wheel sort of has a couple degrees of shift front and back. When you accelerate, it lets you drop the weight to the front of the wheel because it tilts, accelerates easier. It almost feels like a 16-inch wheel now.
and when you brake, it does the same thing. But it also helps with turning. So when turning, you get this pedal dipping, but you can also mitigate it a little by like leaning back a little. So then the weight gets back into the middle again. So this wiggle room at acceleration assist 100 really drastically changed the ride for me and made it a lot more controllable, a lot more predictable, and a lot more fun. And this is the most important thing, because the pedals also don't stay in that position so much as they did before. When you were accelerating, they were up, and then you had to wait until they get back down again, and they were like moving. They still do it on acceleration assist 100, but then you have this dead spot, which sort of mitigates that a lot. So it is sort of like having a soft hard mode. So you have soft mode for a couple degrees of lean of the wheel front and back, but then it's like hard mode and it accelerates without any doubts. It's not like having soft mode and then suddenly it just like bloop, has no power and will dip. No, it's like soft, 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 hard, and power. Acceleration assist is amazing, and you should totally at least try it out on the wheel.
So then you can update your firmware, which is really awesome. You can download the log files so you can check what's happening before a crash, and you can disconnect the device. So very, very straightforward, yet also quite functional app. It's funny that, you know, just maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, there was no app at all for veteran wheels. So yeah, cool stuff. And another thing is that the treads are still not the best in the chassis of the wheel. So especially here for the bumpers, for, you know, all of the stuff here, the thread might break, and you have to also realize which screws you're using. So you're using the right screws for the right thread. This is still soft. I think that the screw thread and screw quality is still better on Mudguard, especially if you want to take the wheel apart many times. So this is slightly annoying. All right, but what's my sort of final assessment and final conclusion to this wheel? And when it comes to the ride of this wheel, it's for a long time I really didn't like it. Like, to be totally frank with you, I enjoyed the performance of it. I enjoyed how much it can do, but I didn't really like click with it. I couldn't feel it out. And a lot of it was due to software, because the pedals, when you turn, would go up a little, maybe then they go down and dip if you do a longer turn. And this also shifts the, you know, weight balance, weight distribution of the EUC, and I couldn't really feel it out. And it got so bad to some point that I just didn't do some jumps and a whole sort of berm line because I couldn't like find my way around the software. And then also on top of that, if you have the chassis flags and you have the wheel like slightly moving within the shell, then you have even less precision. But it all changed with acceleration assist, and this feature made me like this wheel again, really, because as much as I could do crazy stuff with it, jumps, inclines, you know, spins, it just was always like an effort. It didn't ever feel so light as, for example, tricks on the Mudguard Extreme. But with acceleration assist, it allows me to tilt the wheel a little and have a dead spot before it accelerates. And then it mitigates a lot of the issues that I have with this wheel. First of all, it's still big and heavy, and it has a big tire. So with the wheel tilting first and then going into sort of hard mode, it just allows me to accelerate easier and with less effort, and braking is the same thing. And when it comes to turns, this dead spot really helped me to mitigate pedal dipping. Now it's still there, but I can just like adjust my body a lot better to this wheel, and I have a lot more precision and fun on it. So really, this one simple feature just totally transformed the ride for me. It has some weird stuff like this chassis flex. It also has this super acceleration sort of emergency mode, I would say. So sometimes I see people going into like very steep inclines, and then they lose grip, and then the wheel goes into this like super power mode when it keeps accelerating, but it's like dipping the pedals. It's super scary. I don't know what kind of, you know, feature this is, Leaperkim, but I had it on my jump in Vienna too. The wheel just like tilted on the takeoff. I had my friend Łukasz, he was doing a big jump, also too fast, and the wheel also dipped in front of him. And I'm very scared of it, actually, of this sudden dip in acceleration, especially when going uphill. So that's why I also changed the pedal angle to backwards. So it's not ever like the wheel will accelerate by itself because it's tilting forwards. So
This is a weird thing about it, but with the acceleration assist added, I'm enjoying this wheel a lot. There's also no tilt back in the air now. They fixed that when it comes to big jumps. I do like the design of it, but it's still very big and bulky. I don't like how it is becoming sort of like a Surron motorcycle. It looks a little bit intimidating, and I wish it would be just a bit more small, or I don't know, friendly looking. I know it's just a mean machine, but maybe you are digging this sort of design and looks of it. It's still not the easiest wheel to learn on, in my opinion. It has the pedals very high up, so for your initial rides, you might just lose the balance sideways, and it takes a while to just, you know, feel it out for the turns. It isn't the most like certain wheel for me in when it comes to turns, and I think the turns is still the thing where this wheel lacks the most, even though with acceleration assist it's a lot better now. I do not like how you have to change a lot of stuff on it to make it better, but I guess that's getting better with every iteration, except for pedals. Like, they never learn. They just want the cheapest thing, cheapest mold pedals, just to make the biggest profit on the wheel. Like, who can blame them? But I am here to tell you that this is rubbish. Like, I hate the stock pedals on veteran wheels. Just change them. And I won't complain. But yeah, it's in the end, it's a wheel that is quite enjoyable now for me. It's the best sort of all-around device when you want to go bigger distances and still do jumps, inclines, off-road, but then again also go through the city and enjoy the ride, have a lot of comfort. It does it all sort of the best, and if you want to have sort of the best of the compromises that you can get with the best amount of performance, well, this is the wheel, until I will see or experience a different wheel that can sort of dethrone it. So with that said, this is a very comprehensive and way too long review of the veteran Lynx. If you're still here, leave a like on the video, subscribe to see more content like this if you're not bored to death, and I'll see you in the next video. See you soon. I'm off.